Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to this second day of the CIO event. I hope you had a very good night last night. I did enjoy myself. I loved the food. I loved the speeches. I thought it was very, very interesting and very insightful. And I hope that you are all awake today. So it's my pleasure to be hosting this panel this morning on consumerization of IT. And I have with me 5 experts I will introduce in a moment. Just for your benefit, and I know some of you have probably had a little bit of a late night, you will see that we've carefully placed the experts by their pictures. So if you get a bit lost, they are where they should be.
I think that was for us rather than them.
Oh, well, everybody benefits. That's fantastic. So this thing about consumerization of IT is really quite exciting, I think, for me. I was reflecting on an old boss of mine, a guy who, back in the early 90s, actually, working at Amex in Paris. And in my book, he's the first person I ever met who actually went for consumerization of his IT. And as you can probably remember, at the time, Amex was an IBM customer. There was nothing else but IBM kit everywhere. 1991, this was. And he just broke all the rules and went out and bought this Apple MacBook thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it was grey and lovely. And that was it. The point is, he was the only one doing it. And I think today what we have is a very different situation where loads and loads and loads of people are doing this. So to help us understand what is happening with this consumerization, we've got, as I said, 5 experts. Starting with Anne-Marie Duffy over here. Good morning.
Good morning.
CIO of the UK for Microsoft. Stefan Lacher.
Good morning.
The head of operation for Google Enterprise. Simon Meredith from IBM, CIO for UK and Ireland.
Good morning.
Dave Allen, who you may recall from last night's excellent introduction from Netapp.
My mic works today. Go better.
VP and GM at Netapp. And Raj Samani, who's the CTO for McAfee. So thank you guys for being with us this morning. What I'd just like to maybe start off with is a very short, I hope, point on the definition for you of consumerization. What does it mean? Maybe Anne-Marie, you might want to start us off on that.
So from a Microsoft perspective, I would say that internally, so within internal IT, we've been doing consumerization for IT for quite a number of years. And I think our perspective is devices is just one of the components of it. And that's when I talk to a number of customers, at times that seems to be the focus, is how do you enable these whole new array of different devices and accessing the corporate data that you need. I think from our perspective, devices is just one of the elements. Also looking at social computing and the impact that is having for us in our business. As you know, because we are quite unique in a way that we're a big enterprise organization as well as being a consumer organization. I think we also think about it obviously from the security and management perspective and application development. But I think the key thing for us is really how do we ensure that our staff can be as effective and productive no matter where they are, while protecting the information and data within the organization. So it's really balancing the end user productivity, which is really critical, and with how do you mitigate risk and protect data.
Stefan, maybe you have another view from yourself.
Yeah, actually, Google is a consumer company. So consumerization is actually what we're doing. In the enterprise division where I work, we're actually building enterprise wrappers, controls around these consumer services that we offer, like Google Apps, for example, and offer this to enterprises. So it's in the heart of our business, in the heart of our product. We do consumer products that have been, refined for the enterprise market.
Okay, Simon?
Okay, yeah, sure. I think from our perspective, and probably reiterating some of what Anne-Marie said, is for us it's really enabling employees in the way they want to work. And there's a lot of press around the device part, which is important. And there's been a lot of discussion, certainly internally within IBM, about that and employee choice around device. But ultimately it's about enabling IBM and its employees to do the work in the way they want to do that in the most flexible and productive way that we can.
Dave?
Yeah, so from a Netapp perspective, so I guess we have two views on this. One of which is as a consumer of the IT, because we're an infrastructure company. So as a consumer, it's around productivity. So we're looking at how to drive productivity into the workforce, and the mobility and all the things that the consumerization drives is part of that. I also see it as a method of natural fact of in the future. The Willem's video of last night, which showed the Accenture video with all of the next generation of employees to the workforce. We see this as also as part of the method of attracting the right kind of talent into the organisation and what we do, because they want choice, their expectations are different. So I see those things driving things from the front edge of the business. From the back end of the business, how we deliver those services and those applications to our employees, we see it as flexibility in how we architect applications, how we build things differently to be consumed on any device. And we're a pretty open and flexible organisation. I'm probably IT's worst nightmare with an Apple laptop, a Windows 7 laptop, an iPad 3, and an Android phone. So my expectation is that I can use any of those wherever I go. So the device is important, but really it's productivity for us.
Okay. And Raj, maybe a view on security as well from yourself.
So it's always fun going last because you can kind of get away and just say ditto, but I don't think that quite works. You know, consumerization isn't anything new. You know, we've seen new ways of working over the last 20 years. I remember when I first went into work and I was told, you're not allowed to use the phone for personal phone calls, and then it was, you're not allowed to use the internet for your own personal benefit, and then you're not allowed to use email and so forth. So really, from a consumerization perspective, it's not just mobile. You know, consumerization in 5 to 10 years, you'll start to see electric vehicles being plugged into corporate grids owned by, large grid operators and so forth. But really, it's about enforcing the governance rules with regards to information on devices that may or may not be owned by the corporate organization. And in effect, as my colleagues have said, being able to do that in a way which really improves the productivity of your users. Because, I watch X-Files and 24, and, our users aren't Jack Bauer who are trying to take data off and trying to hand it over to the competitors. They're human beings that make mistakes. So it's around putting the appropriate controls in place to mitigate against those sort of things happening.
Thank you very much. Now, if we look at maybe putting some numbers on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be the most rigid, as you were describing, Raj, just sort of, perhaps the olden days of nothing can be done that isn't controlled by. 1 to 10, where 10 is actually the most open, flexible, fantastically free environment. Where would you say your company is today? Starting with you, perhaps, Raj.
It's a difficult question to answer. I think from our perspective, there's a degree of pragmatism. You are allowed to use your own devices, and yes, you are allowed to sort of use your own laptops and so forth as well. But what we do is we put in rules with regards to the information. So we look to put controls in place to make sure that, for example, certain types of data can't be put onto specific devices, or certain types of data can't be forwarded out to third parties externally. So, I guess, if I sit on the fence and say 5, I'm either right or wrong, depending on who you ask.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, maybe jumping over to you. Is there another fence you can sit on? Or?
I think it's interesting. I think when you think of the scale of 1 to 10, I would say that as an organisation, we, on a scale of 10 as in, we completely embrace and are driving consumerisation culture and policies, etc., within the organisation. But I think we do it in a governed way, and I think that's one of the challenges for most IT organisations at the moment is moving from control, as saying earlier. You in the past you would have controlled what your staff can and can't do, to one now where it's the governance and having the policies in place to ensure that the technology, in effect, is intelligent enough to know, the user, what device they're using, where they are, the information that they're trying to access, and whether it's appropriate for that information to be on that device in a different location. So I would say that we are all completely in consumerization of IT, but we do it in and I don't want to use the word controlled, but in a governed way, because our going back to what I mentioned earlier, it's that whole balance of enabling the best productivity for all of our staff, but having that balance on protecting the data, the crown jewels, our customer data, our intellectual property, and it's really getting that balance.
Okay. And Dave, you were saying you're probably the worst nightmare for your IT colleagues.
Is that
just you?
That was me personally. So as an organisation on a 1 to 10, I would say we were 7 to 8. I think we're open about devices. So now that's got 12,500 people, and we've got just over 7,000 personally purchased iPads in the organisation, as an example. A proliferation of devices and such like, and people, when it's a lot of engineers in the firm, so just about every possible access method known to man, and some of the guys are writing their own. But a lot of the information that we deliver in the applications themselves have got security based in them for sure. So people that are accessing, they can access the business intelligence application from almost any of the devices, but they can only access the information that's relevant for them. And there's certain of the devices don't allow caching. So we embrace it in that way, and we're using it very much to drive mobility in the workforce. We're embracing new ways of working, we're embracing new ways of accessing services, and we're designing technologies to leverage those services in different ways as well for customers. So I think the whole thing is expanding rapidly. At the same time, we still face the issues around the privacy issues, around the data migration between countries, the sovereign data rules, data privacy, all those things I think are still very much live. And that's very hard when you have a massively mobile workforce. So I'd say we're pretty good. The reason I gave 7 to 8 is because I think there are a number of applications and things yet that it's our intention to drive and make more accessible that we're not currently there. We have got an initiative we run now, we're calling the IT front door, because we're kind of tired of people going through the IT back door. So we've created that initiative to drive people to come forward with the requirements so that the IT group can actually have an opportunity to assess those, rather than just the classic thing of, I think the devil is often what you don't know, because I don't think most people's networks and things allow more access than they realise. And so it's what you don't know. It's the Evernotes and the Dropboxes and all the other things that have got your corporate data splattered all over them at the moment, with people's private or people's commercial data on, but under private licenses, which means they're being scanned by God knows who, and things are being done to them that you can't control. And so we want to find ways to control that rather than disallow it. And so that's why I give us a 7 or 8.
Okay, thank you. Stefan, a view from yourself?
Yes. Excuse me, probably around the 7. It's as Anne-Marie said, it's strictly governed, but there's a lot of choice. Laptops are restricted, but mobile devices, you can bring your own, use the corporate one. Many choices. As long as you use only web-based services, everything's more or less allowed from any place, from any device. If you use, however, native clients on a mobile device, then you have to have device policy installed, and it's very rigid then, and it's all logged and audited, and there's full control of the device then through the company, location, wiping, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. And Simon?
Yeah, I think at IBM we've made a lot of progress in the last probably couple of years. I think from my point of view anyway, in terms of consumerization and what we were doing around devices and how we were operating, we were probably quite a long way behind a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I think we've made some good strides in opening those opportunities up, but as a number of my colleagues have said, in a controlled way, so ensuring that we're really forcing security policy where we need to maintain integrity of our data and corporate assets. I think in terms of answer to the question, where do we sit? Probably a kind 7 in terms of where we sit. But in terms of devices, certainly, at the early stages from a smartphone perspective, for UK and Ireland now, devices are the employee's responsibility, not ours. So in the last 12 months, 24 months, we've made quite a huge stride from getting out of the device business on the smartphone part, which I know is only one element of it, but that's now the employee responsibility. So a 7.
Okay, interesting.
Can I add just
Please.
one thing I should have said? I think most people and most customers that I speak to imagine that, well, it's okay for you, Microsoft, because you're all a Windows platform. And obviously, because of the technology company that we are, we have, and because of a number of the acquisitions that we have got a lot of non-Microsoft, non-Windows devices, iPads, etc., accessing and wanting to access corporate data. So we I think it's important for me to mention as well is that some of the challenges that you will face is very similar to what we face within our internal IT. How do you enable the whole variety of devices and enable them to access what they want to? Because our staff are pushing us to do that. It's not just the Microsoft world.